So we had fucking Bruce Springsteen this week. Excellent. Great time. What'd you think of it?
I thought it was an interesting combination of cocaine and Christian rock.
Yeah, there was one part he started doing the song, Rory, where he had all the crowd like hands up in the air like that, like you're at a gospel choir going like amen. To be fair, I was getting stuck in. It was class. Like,
He said amen.
I think it was amen. It sounded like it anyway.
There was a bit where he was like, "Can you feel the spirit?"
Yeah.
Like over and over again. I thought he was going to start handling a snake.
Like De Niro and Cape Fear.
I didn't know.
Granddaddy used to hang on snakes in church. And my granny drunk strychnine. No, it was so good. Great set list. It was funny. He opened with No Surrender, which I thought was quite like Bruce showing like the loyalist
Ballsy.
kind of affiliation there. Yeah, it was interesting.
I'm not sure if he realizes that it's a thing here.
Yeah, well, it's, most Americans, they're kind of blind to that. Yeah,
I heard
Old
it
firm
from-
weekend as well. So
yeah, an old firm weekend. No, it was really good. Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, as a famous playwright once wrote, "Uneasy is the head that wears the crown." You know, I got this fucking cough like 10 days ago. And it was one of those coughs, it didn't feel like it belonged to this century. Like, this was a cough more akin to like the Victorian era, or you could even say the Middle Ages, to be honest with you. Like, it
Do
could
you have whooping cough?
Whooping cough was one of the potential ones.
There's an epidemic of whooping cough right now.
Oh,
It's like a level below a pandemic.
well, there you go. That's it.
That's terrible. do you have this currently?
I'm sort of gotten over it now. But yeah, I thought it could have been like Spanish flu or like tuberculosis.
Scarlet fever.
Yeah, like tuberculosis or even consumption. I think they're maybe the same or like one
Yeah,
of the
we've
same. I don't
had
know.
this conversation before.
Yeah.
It's any wasting disease.
Then on top of that, I was recently stricken with lumbago, which is another outdated term for lower back pain. And
lumbar support.
Your lumbar region.
yeah. But and then actually like earlier on, I essentially pooed myself. I was rushing upstairs to the toilet. This is true, and my back gave out. And yeah, I didn't quite make it to the toilet.
This needs to not be in the episode. Absolutely awful.
No, listen, I'm an honest guy. People enjoy the honesty. So yeah, I'm just seem to be falling apart. Like,
That's what happens after the age of 25.
Yeah.
Everything starts to break slowly.
yeah, like, it seems though like once I get over one thing, something else just rears its ugly head. And once I'm better, I need to get back to the gym. Like, I mean, like, Rory, you can vouch for this. Like 5 years ago, I was like some kind of Adonis. I look like
Vouch for anything.
I look like Ronaldo, not Cristiano. You know the other one. I look
Fat Ronaldo.
yeah, essentially. Yeah, I didn't want to just say it that bluntly, but yeah.
I hope he's listening, but I very much doubt it.
So yeah, Colonels and Cornheads, welcome back to this momentous episode of the Popcornhead podcast. We've reached a milestone. It is episode 10, episode X of the podcast. And what a time it's been so far. I mean, we're having an absolute blast doing this, and we're glad you guys are enjoying it. So in order to mark this occasion, I have come bearing gifts for my co-producers as a thank you for their work and contribution to the podcast. So, Tom, for yourself, I've kept...
He's got a bag.
Yeah, I've kept in line with your philosophy of buying records. These were not bought online. They were picked up in local charity shops like Oxfam,
Oh, wow.
Cancer Focus. Now,
What you mean to say was that you were stealing these from
well, let's leave it at that.
you were depriving the poor cancer sufferers of their money.
I know you have some reservations about, you know, charities relating to cancer, you know, but I was hoping we could sort of move past that. And these were some items I couldn't possibly turn my back on. There was some great stuff in this bag of treats. So
You're insinuating that I'm pro-cancer.
So what I want you to do is I want you to take this bag. I don't want you to look inside it, and I want you to work from this side back. Okay. So I'm gonna hand it to you.
Amazing.
Do it the other way around, Tom.
So yeah, don't look into it.
Look at it straight away.
So, and then you start from the first
I'm gonna
one.
need to have it this way, if that's all right.
Whatever suits, as long as you just take out the top
Yeah,
one and work your way
that's it,
back.
that's-
All right. So what have we got here?
So the first record is a record by Gary Glitter called
Oh, wow.
Touch Me.
Yeah. So Gary Glitter, he's like
And
this.
the glitter band.
Yeah, he's this sweet 70s, 80s artist with some big glam rock hits. And yeah, like, I think he's just been retired for a while now, like enjoying his life. I think he lives in like Vietnam or Thailand or something. He's just having a good time.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
haven't
saying?
heard any stories about him.
Rock and Roll Part 2 is a great song.
To be fair, I don't
Not
recognize
even
it.
fucking on this.
It's some very obscure kind of album. So that's one. So if you take one more and then
So
I see the back of it.
sticking with the theme that seems to be developing
of
here,
70s, 80s stars.
it is a best of Rolf Harris.
The dearly departed Rolf Harris.
It's didgeridoo. Wobble board.
Yeah.
He invented the wobble board. Do you know that?
Did he actually?
He invented the wobble board.
Jesus Christ.
Fair play to him.
On the cover, it looks like he's sort of manhandling a kangaroo.
Yeah.
Which is clearly not consenting to the tight embrace that he's subjecting it to.
Oh.
But yeah, Rolf Harris, he's like this nice, kindly, Australian guy who, as we said, invented the wobble board, and he presented Animal Hospital. And he's got some absolute bangers like Tie Me Kangaroo Down Sport and Two Little Boys, funnily enough.
I always get mixed up between him and Bill Oddie. And I know one's...
Who is it?
Bill
I
Oddie.
used to do that as
I know
well.
one's really innocent. I don't
Who
know.
the fuck's Bill Oddie?
He's like a
Might be
nature
stupid.
program guy.
Your guy.
Oh, fuck.
He looks
Very
a bit like
similar.
Oliver Reed.
So,
He's like a hippie Oliver Reed.
so we'll put you on pause for now because I don't want to leave Rory out here. Rory, what I have for you here is it's a piece by one of our favourite artists, someone who's sort of provided the soundtrack to our friendship over the years, so
Yeah.
I think it's already sort of opened because I had to check it,
I just opened it there.
Yeah, so what have you got there, Rory?
Oh, we've got Darius. That's hilarious.
Pop Idol finalist Darius
I
Dinesh.
was just checking the colourblind was on it.
R.I.P. by the way,
Of
gone too
course.
soon.
Darius
What did he die
dead.
of?
He died like 2 years ago.
What of?
I don't know, but he died young. He's in his
Ass
40s.
cancer?
I'm gonna keep this with my Dean Gaffney collection that you got me for Christmas. All the Dean Gaffney headshots.
We were talking earlier the other day about the song Colorblind. How I thought he
All
was
those
saying
lyrics.
feeling blind, so blind, which makes no sense.
What is he saying?
Feeling fine, it's sublime. I thought it was feeling blind, so blind. So Tom, you would like to start with your next two here, okay? These are better ones.
Oh, yeah, wow. So we have a record by Marty Robbins called
Number one
Cowboy.
Yes. I don't really understand what this is. It's got some of the big hits on it. I don't know whether this is like a re-recording of these tracks. Like if you turn it around, like look at the
It
songs.
says TV special,
Yeah.
20 big hits.
So yeah, it might be like a re-recording of things, but like Big Iron's on there, El
Iron
Paso.
on his head.
Worth a listen anyway.
Yeah, most definitely. We've spoken about him before as well. He does fit into this theme that you've developed because he married his wife at 15.
Oh,
or
did
something.
he?
Yeah, or no, he met his wife at 15.
Well, that worked out quite well.
what age was
then.
he?
That's a
He
recurring.
was like, I think he was at least in his 20s or possibly even his 30s.
That's been a recurring trend on this podcast. So I hope you don't have this. This is a special one.
I actually don't have this. And I would, it was one of those ones where I was like, I would get it, but I'm not going to pay for it.
It's a
So this is
beautiful.
perfect.
It's a beautiful, pristine edition.
So what we're talking about is Van Morrison Moondance. And it's like a very, very good
that is-
condition.
Check out the actual vinyl itself.
Yeah, I fucking love And It's Stoned Me.
Yes.
Oh my
If
god,
you actually-
that's the best Van Morrison song in my
The
opinion.
vinyl itself is beautiful.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Holy
good.
shit.
Orange.
It's a see-through orange vinyl.
Oh,
Yeah.
That
sick.
is awesome.
Very cool,
That's-
isn't
That
it?
is so cool.
Yeah, that's very
Awesome.
very of the time. That's brilliant.
And then Rory, one last one for you because I know you're a bit of an alcoholic. So
Oh, that looks lovely. Glenlivet, single malt Scotch, American oak.
the best the club card price could buy.
That looks good for me. That looks good for me. Woohoo.
No, it was just a thank you to both of you for all your hard work and your
but-
contributions.
You don't need to be thanking us. We should be thanking you. Oh, here. Well, we will be enjoying
You'd be
that.
thanking me for the hours of editing I've put into this motherfucker.
I think everybody's deserving a bit of thanks.
Oh, aye.
I haven't put in as much effort.
We'll get there. It's a process.
We'll find something for you to do, I'm sure.
And also, I come bearing gifts for our listeners today. We're doing something a little different.
Sorry,
So
Constantine.
Sorry, there's a dog in the midst of everything here.
I horrified the dog by pulling my chair in while he was under the table.
Oh, it's all good.
And now he doesn't know what to do.
Today's a nice loose one anyway.
I was just trying to shepherd him.
Lucky's grand. So today we are marking our 10th episode with a Popcornhead Special. And yeah, whenever we have one of our specials, we will be covering like a certain topic, scenario, whatever, as opposed to a single film. So today's special is called Pitches and Adaptations, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing on this episode. We will each be pitching an Oscar bait film. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what an Oscar bait film is, we've got you covered. So basically, an Oscar bait film is a film that seems to have been made solely for the purpose of winning Oscars and little else. Like, an Oscar bait film will often appear to be making some sort of statement or trying to say something profound and important, but coming across as kind of superficial. And it'll rarely take any real creative risks. Like, it won't push the medium forward in any way, basically.
Give us an example or two.
I'm not saying that Oscar bait films aren't going to be a good film. There are several ones that I thoroughly enjoy. And sadly, they can end up being maligned because they do receive awards attention, which is something like, I don't get that. Like, people seem to have this thing of like judging films based on winning awards. Like a good example, a prime example, I think, is Dances with Wolves. It gets some really unfair hate simply because it won Best Film and Best Director over Goodfellas. And like, why blame a film for what a group of people voted to be awards worthy,
That's so true. And especially like the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Like a lot of years they get it wrong.
And both those films are great.
Yeah, I know, that's the thing. Yeah.
And they do get it wrong. What about
what was the year? The year where There Will Be Blood came out?
Yes, 2007.
And it, correct me if I'm wrong, but No Country for Old Men won over There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
When in my opinion, There Will Be Blood is a better
very
film.
Contentious, like a great year.
It's a fucking great, like, don't get me wrong, No Country for Old Men is amazing.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, There Will Be Blood is stronger.
I'd be the same.
I'm an oil man.
I am a goo man. That's the thing, it's like, if you're going to blame anybody, blame the Academy if you must, but my suggestion would be to not give a fuck. It's all bullshit anyway. But a big recent one I can think of is Green Book, which shocked the world in winning Best Film at the Oscars. Nobody saw that coming, and Spike Lee was particularly outraged by this decision, but this guy is like the king of being outraged.
Was it? Is that the Viggo Mortensen one?
Yes, Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. Am I saying that right? Mahershala Ali.
It is a wee bit kind of like, I can understand why some people were annoyed by it, because it was like ahistorical based on the actual material, and also had kind of like...
It's wishy-washy.
It had like, from what I understand, I could be wrong about this, but I think the criticism is that it kind of like warped events to be a white savior film, which is a bit kind of outdated, let's just say.
I definitely enjoyed it when it came out, though.
No, it's a good film. It's
I really enjoyed it.
It's a nice film.
I didn't notice that, but then looking back on it afterwards, you know what I mean? Like, other people who, like black people watching it might be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
But still,
whereas might not pick up on it necessarily.
Yeah. But it's still a nice feel-good film. Great performances, like Viggo Mortensen and I can't say it.
Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala, yeah.
He's really good in the third season of True Detective.
Yes.
I really enjoyed
I've seen the first two series.
Second one ruined it for
Didn't
you?
enjoy the second series. It was Vince Vaughn and Colin Farrell, wasn't it?
I liked the second series.
It's not Vince Vaughn, Colin Farrell.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn having a lot of pillow talk with his wife.
And I really didn't like
you've got the volume up to 100 trying to hear him.
Whereas series one with McConaughey and...
There's a masterpiece.
It's iconic, and it's impossible to follow that.
Yeah.
Who else?
Also, I think...
Woody Harrelson.
That's right, yeah.
I also think the fact that it's like, because they nailed it so much on the first season, and because it's a different story for the second season, it's always going to be really hard when you're comparing it to the first.
Yeah.
So I feel like that biases us a little bit.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But like some other prime examples of, Oscar bait films, The King's Speech, something like that.
I still haven't seen that.
It doesn't mean they're bad.
No,
it's just,
you're right.
The Blind Side. That one. The fucking Sandra Bullock one.
I do know the film. I was going to say, I really enjoyed that.
That's like the most white savior film I think I've ever seen in my life.
It is. She's taking the boy from a ghetto, and he's... it is good, though.
You've that one, I haven't actually seen it, but I've heard about it. It's called Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which apparently just exploded 9/11. It's like set against the backdrop of 9/11, but some melodramatic story, And you've got like Don't Look Up, which for me is basically like it's the same joke for 2 hours that never gets out of first gear. It was a big letdown for me, unfortunately, a huge letdown.
I really liked it.
I think you should watch it again because
Maybe I won't like it again, but I liked it for the first time, and I don't feel like I need to watch it again.
yeah.
But as I said in a previous episode, I feel like it's kind of a modern Doctor Strangelove.
But it never gets out of
not
first
as
gear.
good
It's
as-
like it's just the same shit for 2 hours. You know what I mean? It doesn't like elevate the material for me anyway.
Well, I don't know. Like, I don't know what you're gonna do. Like, it's trying to give like a specific argument.
Yeah, but you get it within 10 minutes of the film, and then you're like, okay, now you're just preaching at me like a straight preacher, you know. What else? Bohemian Rhapsody, we've talked about that before, and Darkest Hour, that Winston Churchill
Oh my God.
biopic, that is such Oscar bait. Like, you get the idea.
Also,
basically.
like, really ahistorical as well, because Churchill was a massive racist. Like, Churchill
shocking, shock horror.
No.
Cut on.
Churchill's closer to Hitler than like the
We're gonna
portrayal
cut
in that.
all of this.
I'm not joking. Churchill's a massive raging anti-Semite.
He is.
He's
I'm
awful.
I'm sure, but he also saved the nation.
He did fuck all.
The people save the nation, Roy. The
Yeah.
people save the nation.
Churchill took the reins and saved the nation.
Nah.
Churchill was really unpopular come the end of the war and got booted out of office as soon as it ended.
He did.
Yeah.
But
And there's a
The
reason
people-
for that.
the people on the ground did it.
No, the reason why people venerate Churchill now
It's
is
like a myth. Nearly.
it was a project started by Thatcher in the 80s.
Yeah.
It is completely ahistorical nonsense. He was a real, like, nasty racist.
But everybody was real nasty racist.
No, they're not like this. No. People fought wars against the Nazis for views very similar to Churchill. No, the biggest difference that Churchill had with Hitler is that he was an imperialist. And Churchill was like, wait, no, this is our thing, fuck off. Like, somebody has to stop this because that's like not cricket in Europe anymore. That's for like Africa.
Well, there's a lot to be said, but
Anyway, we'll move on. So what we're going to do is we're going to pitch our own Oscar bait film. We're going to pitch, sort of talk about the plot, talk about what directors that maybe should be involved, and like the cast, things like that. Now, for my Oscar bait film, I've decided to go for a biopic, a biographical drama of a figure who made headlines world over during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm talking, of course, about NHS hero Captain Tom Moore. Now, with this being an Oscar bait film, I will of course be playing fast and loose with the truth in telling this story. I will be inventing scenarios. I will be pushing some sort of agenda in my film. I'll be manipulating, characterization in order to make the most watered down, overtly sentimental, cliche, and melodramatic biopic I can possibly imagine. So, for some context, Captain Tom Moore, he was a British Army officer
hero.
He was a hero, yes, who in the run-up to his 100th birthday raised money for charity and the NHS by walking 100 lengths off his garden.
not during COVID.
Yes, it was during lockdown. And his initial hope was to raise £1,000. And then when he turned 100, he'd raised over £30 million. He would win a sports personality award. He would feature and perform in a cover of You'll Never Walk Alone, sung by Michael Ball.
Oh my God, that was incredible.
He would be knighted by the Queen. He would become a national hero. Now,
Bit of a Churchill, you might say.
the scenario, however, it does make you wonder, how did we, as a nation, get to the point where your government is so inept that a 99-year-old veteran is doing laps of his garden to fund the NHS?
And also don't forget about his rival stair climber.
Oh, we'll get there. Oh, we will get there. Trust me. See, Captain Tom, a very inspirational figure, and like, that's all well and good. But today, I'm a manipulative, devious Hollywood producer. See? Whenever I was thinking about this earlier, Roy, whenever I talk like that, I'm always reminded of that scene, I don't know if you'll know it, in Goldfinger, when Goldfinger's pitching...
all of its super villains.
What do you call the project? Operation Grand Slam?
Operation Grand
To all the
Slam.
gangsters, and you're all like, what are you trying to pull, Goldfinger?
Like the doors moving and all. As the,
Where's that from over there?
as the diorama comes out. That's so
And
good.
yeah, so I'm basically here to sink my claws into the story of Captain Tom Moore for financial gain and political reasons. So let's get into it.
Political reasons.
Oh, you'll see.
Always.
Yeah, always.
What do you think art is?
So I think the title for my biopic is going to be In the Footsteps of Valor.
Yes.
That's great.
So
Fitting.
the plot, when the film sort of opens, like their initial establishment, you're set in like the quaint English countryside, and you meet Captain Tom Moore, played by the great Sir Anthony Hopkins, in a role he was born to play. You know, you can see it, like, and he's this lovable old veteran enjoying this peaceful retirement and serenity. Then
The same speed, I'd say. Anthony Hopkins these days.
oh yeah, he's getting on. Like, be much like his performance in The Father. Yeah. But then, of course, disaster strikes in the form of a global pandemic. And Captain Tom, he summons his, wartime Tommy spirit, and
The Blitz spirit.
yeah, the spirit of the Blitz, and seeing the NHS on its knees, he decides to raise money by walking 100 laps of his garden before his impending 100th birthday.
I thought you were going to say impending death.
Well, in a lot of ways. Yeah, same thing.
Would you have it, judging by events that have transpired after his death, would you have the family being like really pushy, being like, fuck off down the garden, Dad?
Oh no, that will be completely ignored.
Okay,
that will be washed
that's
over.
whitewashed
that
out.
will be whitewashed over. They're just a nice, the family's just a nice, just your typical English,
so it ends,
well-to-do family.
It ends before they build and have the spa torn down.
That's completely ignored. yeah. So once we've established the character and all like the pandemic, what will happen is we'll flash back to World War II, where we're going to meet a young very sexy heartthrob Tom, played by Mr. Tom Holland, of course. Young Tom, he braves the war-torn landscapes of India, Burma, and Sumatra, having many thrilling adventures and even a passionate love affair that will meet a tragic end.
No
and,
comfort women were hurt.
No, of course
this
not.
Film.
Absolutely not. No. And he'll emerge from this like broken-hearted, but his spirit will remain resilient. He'll carry this with him. So basically, Tom's journey around his garden, it'll be juxtaposed with the war front. Tom will be reliving various memories with each lap he does. Each
It's
lap's
like fading in and out.
Yeah, it's like each lap's a chapter of his life, as he walks, he interacts with his well-to-do family who have no malintent in this, sharing pearls of wisdom, anecdotes, and wartime stories to really inspire people during hard times. So yeah, one step at a time, Tom fights his battles, present and past, and he becomes a global sensation. And then he learns of a similar act from an old foe from the war days, Mrs. Margaret Payne, 90 years old, who plans to steal the spotlight from Tom by making repeated trips up and down her stairs for the NHS.
You need to make her name a bit more dramatic. Maybe this is her new name. She's changed it since before. She used to be like
former Nazi.
Yes, that's perfect.
Fraulein Payne.
What's her name again?
Margaret Payne.
Okay, so she's changed it from Marta Heidelbaum or something. That's too Jewish.
Rosa Klebb.
Rosa.
That's from Russia with Love,
Oh yeah.
You're a real.
With the knife in her foot.
Yeah,
she's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, with this all happening, the clock is obviously ticking for Tom, and the race intensifies. And like, what this is going to be, it's going to be like an irresistible tearjerker that really has a very wishy-washy examination of human spirit.
It massively overuses the there's like a note that makes you want to cry. Adele uses it a lot. You know what I mean? I forget exactly what it is, but it massively overuses that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like, this is a film about hope, courage, and love. It's a film that's sure to melt hearts and win Oscars. Now, to direct this film, there's only one man for the job. I sort of thought if there could be any other options, but there was no one else. It has to be Tom Hooper. director of The King's Speech, Les Miserables, and Cats. Tom Hooper's your go-to Oscar bait guy, essentially. Now, this film, it will be a massive box office success, but it will be a critical disaster. You know, I've actually, I've got some reviews for this film that I've sort of invented that will come down the line. One review reads, rife with cliche and melodrama, this biopic lacks the subtlety and finesse of a truly great film. We have another one there. This biopic tries too hard to pull at your heartstrings, often veering into the absurd, playing fast and loose with the truth. More exhausting than moving. No pun intended, over the top in terms of sentimentality, void of nuance and hard to take seriously. So yeah, that's my biopic from Captain Tom. I think it's a moneymaker anyway, definitely in this climate. It'll sweep the BAFTAs. It'll sweep the BAFTAs 100%.
I think you really need to be exploiting that rivalry.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a clincher.
So, Tom, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So for my biopic, I've also chosen a biopic, by the way.
Biopic or biopic?
Apparently it's biopic.
I'll never be able to change. It's too late.
Biopic is better, but...
Sounds like biopsy.
I know.
I'll just stick with what I know.
What's
British
I
don't think it really
American?
matters. I don't know.
What would the Queen have said?
See, I've only ever heard... I've only really heard people say biopic. I haven't really heard biopic much. Yeah,
I've heard biopic.
Interesting.
I've heard biopic.
I've heard it a couple of times.
The times I've heard biopic, it's been from more intellectual people, and it's made me think,
Yeah, but
saying this
I
wrong.
do say a lot of things in a weird way, as you know.
Oh, what's that bar down south, mate? That was funny. Cabanas. It's like the way John Wayne would say it.
John Cavanagh. There's other ones. There's definitely other ones. I know. But
That's definitely how the Americans would pronounce that.
I do it. I do it more often than not. Yeah. But yes, so you're making a biopic.
Yes.
Biopic.
So it's going to be in the same vein as yours.
Okay.
But it's going to have been probably shelved by this point. Like, they started making it and then events overtook it. And they had to, like, hastily burn the script or whatever. So it's going to be a heartwarming World War II era story about one man's fight for freedom.
Okay.
And it is, of course, going to be the life story of the Nazi guy that the Canadian Parliament gave a standing ovation to recently.
I literally thought you were going to say Churchill. You know?
So who is
I'm
this
telling
guy?
you, like, I'll show you some quotes.
I fully
I'll
believe
show
you.
you some quotes from Churchill that will make
I
your
fully
head
believe
fucking
you, but
spin.
I'm so prepared to already disregard them.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway,
Truth hurts, doesn't it?
so it's
you don't want to know sometimes.
yeah, it's like that thing in in Rick and Morty, like the jelly bean king who tries to rape Morty.
Just let this happen.
Blissful ignorance.
Yeah, it's at the end whenever they're like, it'll be better for the people if they remember him.
statue.
Yeah.
That's good. That's so good.
But no, it's gonna be the Yaroslav Hunka biopic,
Right.
And
Who the fuck is that? Who the fuck is that guy?
so this is what I'm saying. He was a 98-year-old Ukrainian Nazi that the Canadian Parliament accidentally gave a standing ovation to.
Right, okay.
Because he was presented as a Ukrainian freedom fighter who fought the Soviet Union during the Second World War, ringing no bells in anyone's brain in the fucking Canadian Parliament, apparently. Nobody caught that this guy was fighting for the Nazis.
Okay, right, right.
We were allied to the Soviet Union at that point.
Yeah. So do we...
Completely missing that. All these fucking SEALs giving him a standing ovation and then later having to apologize. So I'm thinking it's going to be directed by Alex Garland, the guy who did the new Civil War film.
Have you seen it?
I haven't.
No, I haven't seen it yet either. Yeah.
I've heard.
What film?
It's called Civil War. It's a new one. It looks like it'd be good. Like, but Alex Garland and me don't really get along. I've struggled with Garland over the years.
It looks like something I'll really enjoy, but from what I've heard,
I thought we were getting a Civil War film, and we're stuck here.
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately not. But it's like dystopian, but it seems very similar to what's actually kind of going on at the same time.
Well, it is and it isn't. It's like, well, Alex Garland's British, but it's like a British person's half understanding of America making an American Civil War war movie that's meant to be up to date.
Well, you know what? We should watch it and then
I really want to see it.
properly.
But what I'm saying is, from what I've heard about it already, I have concerns.
Yeah,
but
like, I'll definitely watch it.
The point I'm making here is that it's done by a director who means well, but doesn't really understand the subject matter that they're covering. So this director has sprung into action to make this Oscar bait film about this guy who's, a hero who's being honoured by the Canadian Parliament. And
why the Canadian? Was he Canadian citizen?
So there's a big Ukrainian nationalist movement in Canada. A lot of Ukrainian Nazis apparently went to Canada from the look of it. There was another scandal recently, I think it was last year or the year before, where they had sponsored this monument and there was a load of Nazi war criminals' names on the
Why did they miss that?
I don't know. I have no idea how this happens, but whatever.
Is Putin the good guy?
No. Putin's not involved. But the reason why the people who are honoring this guy, the reason why they're doing it is because Russia is the bad guy. So you have to retcon all of history to make it conform with that narrative. You know what I mean? Like the fucking Marvel Cinematic Universe when they introduce a new character or a new bad guy, and then it's oh no, they've always been here, and this will fill you in. It's fucking dystopian. It's very 1984. Yeah. It's very Eurasia has always been at war with Oceania or whatever.
Yeah, it's with Marvel, it's they've always been an Easter egg character in the background, a hooded character. It's Vince McMahon, it's me, Austin! Revealing himself. It was me all along, Austin. So, the plot of this, will it show his past? Will it show him as being maybe a Nazi, but he's they portray him as being a good Nazi?
Yeah. So
a Rommel.
Rommel's pretty sweet.
Rommel's a good Nazi.
I maybe actually
not a Nazi,
possibly overrated as well.
True.
But
there's a film called Get Rommel, which my dad always watched. Movies for men.
My dad always watched.
Always. It was on every day.
So anyway, you're gonna get scenes in World War II. Maybe they'll have him in irregular uniform, so you can't really tell that he's a Nazi or something. Yeah. I don't know, but we're going full kind of revisionist history. He might be in an SS uniform, but it's just never addressed, and it's irregular soldier fighting the Soviet Union. Who's obviously allied with Britain and America at this point, fighting against the Nazis.
Right.
And I think it's indisputable that he has to be played by a de-aged Tom Hanks. I think that's the perfect person for this.
Yes! That's Irishman technology.
Yeah. And then you'll have him as an old man, with
doing a really bad Eastern European accent he does in Elvis.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Terminal. Yeah.
We watched half of The Terminal sort of recently and we never finished it.
I don't think I've ever seen The Terminal.
He's just walking about for a really bad Eastern European accent.
Yeah. It reminds me of Tom Cruise in, was it Valkyrie? A film. It's a decent film, but it's
Kill Hitler one.
Yeah, we gotta kill Hitler. That's a quote from the film in that exact cadence as well. They're all just American. The only guy who speaks with an accent is Eddie Izzard. He plays a Nazi in the film, and he actually does the accent. Yeah. Although I think he's a guy in it. I don't know if he's a woman in it.
The Americans don't have the acting range to do a European accent, whereas Eddie Izzard does.
Love it.
It's like the fucking, in Inglourious Bastards when they're pretending to be Italians. And your man Christoph Waltz is let me hear it again. Let me hear the music. I was also thinking for Trudeau, you have to have an actor playing Justin Trudeau.
Okay.
And I'm
Blackface
thinking,
Trudeau?
No, that's whitewashed out of it.
What was he dressed up as?
He was dressed up as Aladdin, I think.
It looked
very funny.
It looked like a genie of some sort, but complete, proper Al Jolson.
Al Jolson.
Al Jolson, blackface. It was proper, one of those things.
My God.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking for him, you could potentially have Tom Cruise, but also...
He does actually have a wee look about him, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But maybe, that movie Late Night with the Devil?
Yeah.
What do you call the main actor in that?
I don't remember, but he's great. He's a good up-and-coming actor.
Yeah, so maybe him as Trudeau. I just don't know if he's old enough.
No, I think that'll be a decent shout, but I enjoy the thought of Tom Cruise.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, maybe you could shoehorn Biden in there as well. I don't know who you're going to have playing him.
What was that thing you told me recently about Biden saying his uncle was eaten by cannibals or something?
Yeah, so there was an international incident like I think it was last week or the week before, because Biden had told this story about his uncle being shot down over Papua New Guinea and that he was eaten by cannibals.
My uncle was shot over Papua New Guinea. He was eaten by cannibals.
Yeah, needless to say, this is a lie. This did not happen. His uncle
Likely just shot down in the ocean.
No, I think there was a fault with their plane and it went down in the sea near Papua New Guinea and he drowned. So none of that was true. But like from what I've heard, there is some stories of cannibalism from Papua New Guinea, but like not in that kind of context.
Well, there are a lot of wee islands out there that like you're not allowed to go to. I've sort
is
of
that like the
before.
one? Is the
all,
one?
all the missionaries try to go with them and they just get eaten.
Or they get like riddled with arrows whenever they try.
And then eaten as well.
I've heard about that David Attenborough story. I'm pretty sure it is Papua New Guinea, and he's out obviously looking for wee frogs or something. And they get
I think I have seen this. Yeah.
Out of nowhere, this tribe's coming at them. This absolute like warring cannibals, like screaming, looking like they're about to absolutely eat them.
They're licking their chops.
And what does David Attenborough do? He sort of walks gently towards him, holds out his hand. How do you do?
How do you do? Why did Louis Theroux there? How do you do?
And it was all fine. That's how to greet people, apparently, with a warren scream and a charge.
That's a good one. Like Louis Theroux like meets the cannibals. That'll be quite good. Like.
they're like tying him to a spit, and he's like carrying on the interview while
I'm not quite sure what was going on, but I think it was time for me to leave.
He gets so involved, and he'd definitely try a bit of it. So he would.
To be fair, Louis has such big balls; he would do it. Like, remember the Nazis one?
Oh yeah.
Yes, I always think about this.
I always thought, well, he must be Jewish. Yeah, and he's not in any way Jewish. He's just making a point. So
he's just refusing to say.
And I thought that's crazy. Like,
he's at their house, and they're like, it's like amicable at first, and then they're like, it ends like they're like, "Are you a fucking Joe?"
Yeah, it's the wife and husband are like, "You're in our home." And I just want to know if you're a fucking Jew.
It's crazy, man.
It's awful.
I think it was time for me to leave.
Absolutely awful.
Nazis are so fucking stupid.
They were terrible people. So they were.
They're just not.
I'm gonna grab a beer. I'll be RB.
It's like a simple answer to a complicated question. You know what I mean? Like, is the issue that you're looking at a complicated system with all these like overlapping parts, or is it just the Jews? Like, it's obviously not the Jews. You know what I mean? Like, fucking stupid. It's so stupid.
So, your Oscar bid?
Oh, I was just gonna say, if they managed to get it made in like a certain window of time, like if it came out just after that, you could maybe have like the New York Times giving it 5 stars and calling it a triumph, or like you could maybe have the Telegraph giving it 5 stars and having a headline like "Hard work will set you free" or something. I was thinking maybe like the name of the film would be something like The Price of Freedom, something like that. Yeah. And you'd have the Russians in the film would be portrayed like anti-Semitic stereotypes in like Nazi Germany. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like really nasty, scheming Russians.
Love it. Very good. Very good. So, Rory, let's move on to you, sir.
Right. Almost in a similar vein to the last one.
Another biopic?
Yeah, another
biopic?
Biopic.
They are fucking Oscar bait, to be fair.
Yeah, it's a recurring trend.
And something that we've talked about before as well. General Robert E. Lee.
Oh my God, yes.
And his...
yes!
What was the Trump quote?
Is this a whitewashed General Lee?
Oh, it has to be. It has to be.
So what was the Trump quote that he's out of favour
Never
these
fight
days?
uphill. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Have you ever noticed that? He's out of favour these days.
So we're going to try to turn his reputation around.
So it's like a repairing the lost cause myth.
It's a
kind of thing.
What's the quote he says about Jeremy?
Never find a pill, me boys.
No, before that,
God.
when he mentions him, he's like the out of favor general thing. Oh my god.
Yeah, he says, have you ever noticed he's out of favour these days?
Sorry, Roy, carry on.
Robert E. Lee, and yes, it's going to fit right into the midst of lost cause mythology and
Oh yes.
how the South was really fighting for states' rights. Robert E. Lee was a true American when America was working, and then when states' rights began to take
When the wicked union
exactly too many
came
decisions
knocking.
being made
Started imposing their views on the side.
too many decisions in Washington, and his native Virginia was being
Which
left
he
behind.
loved so well.
Exactly. And this is obviously set in the midst of the
He loved it so much he was never there.
Yeah.
obviously set in the midst of the North-South divide, where the South is deeply agricultural, the North is getting more industrialized, more manufacturing, and the South is being left behind.
Capitalism.
Exactly. We're going to paint it very much like, have you ever seen Song of the South, the Disney film?
I'm very familiar with it. I don't think I think my granny had it on video.
No.
But a great film, really good film, but at the same time, yeah, absolutely awful.
Is this the one zippity doo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus
Christ. It's
Oh,
really-
yeah. I've seen that.
really bad, but it presents a really, really idyllic picture of the South.
I think it's like an Uncle Tom's Cabin kind of thing.
Uncle Tom's Cabin is it's in a similar vein, but Uncle Tom's Cabin goes that step further, that paints Uncle Tom's the victim in that film.
Yeah.
Whereas like in something like Song of the South, there's no black character.
There's no conflict.
There's no
nearly.
and there's no black character that's victimized. It's the same as the way black people are treated in like Gone with the Wind. You know, like we're happy in their servitude. You know?
Gods and generals.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Jesus.
We're going to get on to gods and generals.
Yeah, we'll save that.
Do you know what? I just kind of realized this recently, but as I know you do, love Warren Zevon. Like,
Oh yeah,
like,
adore Warren.
arguably
Zevon.
the greatest songwriter ever.
One of the greatest.
Like a
Finest.
couple of songs,
But-
Laura's Guns and Money. I like that.
Yeah. But like
The French inhaler.
that's so funny.
I love that.
That's from a lot of his songs. You can glean that he had kind of bought into the Lost Cause mythology.
Really?
Yeah. Which was like, I didn't realize how mainstream it was in that era. Like in the 70s, it had completely been mainstreamed. Like even I found out recently that apparently Jesse James was a real piece of shit as well. And like that, the whole like mythology around him is bullshit. Like he was a slave owner, like terrible person.
What you're saying about the 70s is so right. Like think about like Dukes of Hazzard with the cars called
General Lee.
It had the
That's
Confederate
actually a
flag
good
on the
point.
top.
I never really thought about that.
Even
But,
things like the Dixie Chicks, you know, like
Yeah.
the idea of Dixie being a good thing, the land
Yeah.
of Dixie.
but yeah, you could also argue.
Yeah, the night they drove old Dixie down and
Yeah.
stuff by the band.
That's an example.
There's so many. There's like there's
The band are Canadian.
but there's examples in like weird places where you wouldn't expect them. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I think if you want to talk about that whole thing with the South and like the Lost Cause, like you take the Lost Cause, like it's hard to paint it as being so black and white in a lot of ways, because I mean the Civil War is very complicated in that people would say it's about slavery, but like what percentage of the South actually had slaves?
I think it was like 1 in 4 families or something.
Yeah.
Which is enough, I suppose.
It was pretty prevalent.
You got a stage where like the black population in the states like Mississippi and Alabama was higher than the white population.
Yeah.
But none of these people had rights as a person.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah, and if
What
you-
about my rats?
And like if you look into slave societies, it would be quite similar to the Caribbean, you know, where you'd have like a racial hierarchy and people buy into the system because they have this kind of like place where they can exploit people below them but then be exploited by people above them. It is very complicated, but at the same time it is definitely about slavery.
Oh yeah. I would say like you could argue that there would be different interpretations of what the Lost Cause was of the South.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people would have different ideas of what that really meant.
Yeah.
It's complicated. Like
Yeah,
it's-
like it has kind of been rewritten, but
The whole idea that America was built as a republic when they left Britain and they signed the Declaration of Independence and all, like 1776 became their own country.
Yeah.
The whole idea was no taxation without representation. slavery, having everything imposed on them from London without having any say in Parliament themselves.
Oh, wow.
And that then in turn became the South's complaint that they were having these laws put on them restricting the money they could make through slavery, basically.
Yeah.
So there's an argument on both sides, but no matter what, it all comes back to slavery.
It always
Like,
comes back around.
Yeah, like
no matter what way you try to slant it, it's slavery's at the root of that.
Yeah. And like Abraham Lincoln is kind of having this debate with abolitionists. They're like, they want to abolish slavery, but they're trying to like think about the best way to do it. Like you can't.
Yeah, how do you move on from it once you do it?
Yeah, like they're trying to figure out a kind of like durable long-term way to do it. And they succeed because he's quite cautious in how he does it. Like he doesn't just one day be like, we're abolishing slavery.
Yeah, I remember
like
at one point people were trying to cancel Abraham Lincoln. I was like,
Yeah.
fuck
I know.
It's still going on. He's got that famous quote where he talks about how he doesn't believe that the white man and the black man are equal, and he doesn't want to see them on the same level, but he definitely wanted to end slavery. Like, there's no doubt that he wanted to end slavery. He thought it was wrong. There's a lot of debate about whether he actually.
I get you. It's hard to know.
He is a man of the time, and there's a lot of like near enough. Most people did not see.
He was a wrestler.
Didn't see people as equal, you know.
A keen wrestler.
Yeah, he's a wrestler, and what's that hilarious like railway job? Like a line splitter or something.
Oh, the rail splitter.
Rail splitter.
That was what that was his nickname or one of his nicknames.
That was his job for a while. So it was.
Right. And what, like, he has other weird nicknames as well.
He's Pilgrim.
Old
He's
Blue Light, is that one of them?
Right.
So, I was just going to say one other thing about the Civil War. The whole idea that it was a lost cause from the start is not accurate. Like, the South could potentially have won. It's not like...
At one point.
And the North did have advantages, you know, because it was more industrialized and had a bigger population to throw at.
Advantage. A mass advantage.
But at the same time, the South, how I understand it, the South were trying to, like, win with one big knockout punch.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, because
it was working for so long. Lee was just fucking storming through everybody, and that was it. Yeah.
So like, but because that knockout in one failed, then they were like doomed from that point.
Yeah,
because
it was like dominoes.
I'd say Union incompetence in the first year or two of the war allowed the South to gain a good advantage.
The generals kept changing, wasn't it?
Every time that the South gained an advantage, something would happen, like winter would happen, and they'd have to win the camp. So anytime they had advantage, they were never able to make the most of it. When it really came to, as anybody that's looked at the war knows, Gettysburg is the big moment. Up until that point, the South had the chance.
They had the momentum, pretty much.
Yeah. But
like, if you all you have to do is look at the map and see where Gettysburg is in relation to Washington, and like, you know, how the war was going, like, you know, at that point.
But there's always in the background that the Union had only really dipped its toes at the start of the war. If the South ever did gain a proper upper hand, the Union had the resources there and the manpower there to throw a lot more into it.
Yeah, they were kind of parking the bus.
Yeah.
In a way.
They never really, at that stage of the war, they never really had their full manpower behind it, you know?
There's some really cool Union generals.
My
yeah.
favorite. I'll quickly tell you about my favorite, Ambrose Burnside.
Oh yes.
He and this is where sideburns come from. He has the most fantastic facial hair in the world, and it is sideburns. That's where it comes from.
That's amazing.
They're incredible.
And it's like coming down past the ears to the chops down the cheek, and then coming up around the mustache.
Oh, I've seen him. Yeah. And then you got like shit-faced Ulysses S. Grant. He's
the drunken fiend.
Winning, he's like winning all these campaigns.
Back to your let's get back to your biopic.
In my biopic, Grant is going to be a major villain. Drunkenly.
A drunken lecher.
Exactly. Drunkenly pulling his army about. But this is more towards the end of the war, we'll see, Grant. So it is. Before that, we're going to have Lee at Harper's Ferry, where he, back fighting for the Union, he arrested evil John Brown.
The madman John Brown.
He had gathered up a band of slaves and was trying to go about freeing them all.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
John Brown is a fucking legend.
Absolutely is.
But in your film,
John Brown's also a really interesting character because he was like really religious. He was like almost you could uncharitably call him a religious fanatic.
Absolutely.
But because he was so religious, he was like, I can't let this stand. Like, slavery is an abomination. Like, it goes against my faith.
He was a
so
martyr.
I need to do everything I can to try and destroy it.
John Brown was very important. There's going to be a song, John Brown's body lies mouldering in the ground.
Is this a
I think it's a Union song.
Union
I
song?
think it's a Union song.
Yeah.
But yeah, like sometimes you need someone to make a kind of like first
Absolutely.
gesture.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the opening shot of the war almost.
He's a proper martyr.
Yeah.
But, you know, in this film, evil.
He's a maniac.
Evil.
He's a crazed lunatic.
Ruthless.
Will somebody stop that man?
Ruthless religious lunatic that needed stopped.
And the hero.
And the hero, Robert E. Lee, and his band, the Cavalry, rounded him up and, put him away. And then, obviously, eventually he was executed. Not good, but very good in our film.
Good for the film.
I think there's a quote where Lee talks about him, like, you know, he like has respect
Yeah,
for him.
absolutely he does. I think you're very right there.
Glory, glory, hallelujah, his soul goes marching on. John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave.
There's a couple of films, Gettysburg and more so Gods and Generals.
Yes.
Gods and Generals really does push Lost Cause mythology.
Big time.
Yeah,
It's Ted Turner. Is that how you say it, right?
absolutely. Ted Turner funded.
Explain who Ted Turner is, because
Ted
like
Turner-
most people will have no idea, other than maybe having seen like
Oh,
the Family Guy character.
Should we give Ernie a bath?
No! Ernie doesn't like the monsters.
Owns a massive American television network, TNT it was at the time. I think it's gone now. He owned WCW, which is
WCW.
during wrestling's heyday was the major rival to.
Oh, he owned that?
Yeah, was the
shit.
major rival to
WWE. Yeah, WWF at the time. They went up against WWF.
The World Wildlife Foundation.
During the 90s, it was like that was the Monday Night War, they call it,
Right,
between those
okay.
the two titans of wrestling,
And
went head to head.
And he was a real son of the Confederacy, and really played on it too.
He appears in Gods and Generals.
He
Not
does.
only is he a producer, he appears in the film, doesn't
Absolutely, he's there at a particularly hilarious scene where there are a load of Confederate generals sitting around while they're being performed some sort of Confederate song.
The Bonnie Blue flag.
That's it. And they're all having a great time. But,
And like all the other ones are just like Ted Turner's mates.
Yeah,
And they're
exactly.
all just dressed in
Other
Confederate garb
politicians.
going, hurrah, hurrah, it's Southern rights, hurrah, hurrah for the Bonnie Blue flag that bears a silver star. Aye.
so we're gonna have that real.
It was just like a day out for them.
Yeah.
So yes, back to the biopic.
Oh yes,
We keep getting sidetracked here. What were we talking about?
Sorry.
Gods and Generals.
I've set out a couple of villains.
This is too exciting.
It's going to we're going to be majorly conform to everything Lost Cause. We're talking about Gods and Generals. There's a particularly funny scene in which the black slaves, I can't even remember which general it is, but of their family, and they are so upset that the general's going off to war. Like,
They're like horrified.
like, they're all in the family living room with the family, and they're
They're all comforting each other
equally as heartbroken
as the Union approach.
So I think we could probably have a scene at Arlington of.
Is that the Battle of Arlington?
That's Arlington.
The siege?
That's his plantation.
Oh, sorry. Right, yeah.
A scene at Arlington of Lee leaving and his family's slaves being very upset about it.
Yeah, well, speaking of Arlington, like you could start off this film quite further back.
I was going to actually say to you about this. You had a good idea when I talked to you about this, about starting at Appomattox.
Appomattox.
Appomattox, absolutely.
What a way to open the film.
You had a good idea for how that would start.
Yeah, so like Appomattox Courthouse was basically the location where Lee signed the surrender of the South.
It wasn't
Like against Ulysses S. Grant.
I'm surprised there's no like stabbed in the back myth, like there is with
Germany.
Yeah, like in Germany, like you could imagine Lee being a hate figure of the South because he signed the.
Yeah, I suppose.
Sure, we talked about the searchers. That is very much the attitude that John Wayne's character.
Yeah, don't believe in surrenders. Don't see at the surrender, Ethan.
I signed my oath to the Confederate States of America.
But yeah, like your film, it could open with Appomattox Courthouse and Lee sort of sitting there. The camera would work in such a way where it's sort of panning around the room with all these like Union soldiers and generals, but they all look like thugs. They're all like
sneering down at him.
lurching over the camera. They're all drunk. They're all pissed. There's drink everywhere. They're all lecherous fiends.
Yeah.
And Grant's sort of in the corner, like sort of hunched down, absolutely blocked, just like throwing a bottle of whiskey around, and Lee's like the dignified gentleman in the corner. Like his uniform's pristine. Yeah. And he's just waving his hand over the pen, kind of waiting to sign,
It's in. Have you seen Lincoln?
Oh, yeah.
That very scene is in Lincoln. Obviously, but Grant's more composed,
Oh, yeah.
But Lee signing the surrender, by all accounts, is just pretty much that.
But yeah, in this film, it's like he's about to sign, and then he decides he has to tell them all his life story, because that's such a biopic sort of trope.
Yeah.
Before, we talked about this before, it's such a biopic thing where like they're at like some big event in their lives, and for some reason they have to reflect on their entire life to that date. Like walk the line, Ray, all that sort of stuff.
You really need that Saving Private Ryan
You also
moment,
get
at the very end.
you get Arlington Cemetery in Saving Private Ryan. So they turn his estate into a cemetery.
That was a particularly callous move. It really was. That was a particularly...
Talk about rubbing salt into the
It was a
wound.
very callous move from, I can't remember which Union general it was.
But anyway,
He was in charge of that area of Virginia. That's what he said. Simply to get back at Robert E. Lee. It was his fault.
But yeah, you could start off like that, and then obviously cut back to like the early years at West Point as like I think he was like the top student
Absolutely he was.
of West Point.
Yeah.
He excelled at everything, and all that. And then like he spent time in Texas, or he was involved with some conflicts in Texas.
That sounds about right. Because all the generals knew each other from the Mexican Wars before, because they all fought on the same side, and then they were fighting against each other in the Civil War.
And then after that, you move on to the whole Arlington thing, where what was it? He like inherited the estate from his father-in-law or something.
From his father-in-law.
And it was like he left the army to like it's like, I have to leave the army to look after Arlington.
Yeah, and he went back to Virginia, and then Lee was asked to command the Union Army, so he was.
But if we stay with Arlington, so when he was a slave master,
did he free his slaves?
No, he had slaves. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. But so Arlington, obviously, he took over like that plantation, and it's like, he had to take a break from the army to do that. And then there's a story about like, I think you were telling me about it. There's a story about a slave escaped, and like
I don't remember exactly what happened, but something happens, like a slave tries to escape or something, and they get caught, and Lee administers the punishment, and it's like even more brutal than would normally be the case. Like it was, I don't know what it is, like 50 lashes or something.
50 lashes.
And like nearly whips them to death.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, like, you could still have that in your wishy-washy, film, but make it seem as though like Lee's almost like saving the slave in doing that. So
really
like
abusive. Like, I'm doing this for your own good.
I'm imagining the slave has escaped, but not to get away from Lee. It's like to do something else. He's like, because in this film he loves General Lee. General Lee, he's like the kindly man. So he gets away, and like he ends up on some other plantation, and he ends up getting like a fight with a overseer.
Yeah.
And then that leads to the head of that plantation like dragging the slave back to Lee, and I'm imagining it's just Bruce Dern for some reason. And he's just like, what you gonna do about this boy here, kind of thing. And then Lee, he seems solemn. He's like, he has to like maintain this image of who I'm just a man.
He has to do his duty no matter the cost.
Yeah, it's like you could paint it in the light that like he's saving the life of the slave by whipping him. He leans in like, I'm gonna have to do this to you, boy. that kind of thing. Like paint it in that like hilariously skewed light. That'll be interesting.
I was having me think about casting, but it's very difficult to look past people who've already played Robert E. Lee and looking at
Martin Sheen was unreal,
so and Robert Duvall was so good as well.
Also, yeah.
But Daniel Craig, at the sort of age he is now, and remember his southern accent in Knives Out.
In Knives Out,
that's interesting. His sort of height and his stature and all. He's not the tallest man going. I think Daniel Craig.
That's very interesting.
Might be an interesting one
because he's a good actor, like as well.
I've been thinking about directors. He's long dead.
So your dream director,
but D.W. Griffith. Who might not be calling to the mind instantly, directed The Birth of a Nation.
Woodrow Wilson's favorite film. Oh my god. If anybody doesn't know what The Birth of a Nation is, it's this like wildly racist film where I believe the KKK are the
Are
good
heroes.
guys. Yeah. So enough said, basically.
There's a lot of scenes in that in which there's
phenomenal.
very, very, very like malicious white men in blackface.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
trying to grab women and steal them until the KKK comes and saves them.
That's a real like racist trope in like settler colonial societies. There's always like fear of the black men.
Savages.
Yeah, like having their way with the like innocent, like sullying the white women.
Hey, where are the white women at?
Hey, boys, look what I got here.
But yeah, like that was the basis for loads of like, I don't know what you would call them, like lynchings or massacres.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
genocide.
So, like, contemporary director, and who do you think would be good? Like, I have a great one in mind,
Go for it.
and he would direct and star in the film.
Are you gonna say Mel Gibson?
I'm gonna say Mel Gibson. yeah. And this could be like the Braveheart of the South. You know what I mean? Like, this would be Mel Gibson's big comeback into Hollywood. Director and star as General Lee.
It would be very good indeed.
Yeah, but painting it.
Oh my God.
Because like even
I love that.
Because like even Braveheart, like brilliant film, class epic, but it's fast and loose with the truth. They portray Robert the Bruce as like a villain. You know, in the film. Whereas like none of that's true at all.
I know.
You know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and like I was also thinking, like obviously you would need an old Lee and a young Lee in the film, and like obviously you want to have a very sexy guy to play young Lee. Like, with the modern landscape of things, everyone's very beautiful.
Everyone has smartphone face.
No one's grizzled anymore, like, that kind of thing. So I'm thinking Austin Butler for young Lee. Your quintessential sexy guy. You know what I mean?
I don't know your quintessential sexy guy.
I'm just a good-looking guy.
Who's
You
Austin
can identify a good-looking guy.
I don't know who this guy is.
Sorry, forget Roy. Roy's a
have you-
married man. He can't possibly say.
What's he in? I'm looking at him.
Austin Butler, Elvis.
He was in the second.
He was in Once
June.
Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I have seen that.
Yeah, June 2.
He plays Tex Watson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
You know, at the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that amazing scene where Brad Pitt's tripping out in acid and the guy's holding the gun to his face. But there was another one, and this is a bit of a more of a niche one, but I think it's really good because I saw like a role he was in recently, and I was like, he looks like General Lee. Hugh Laurie.
Yeah.
There was a recent TV show he was in, and it's like a sci-fi kind of thing, but he's playing
he's
like
wearing-
some
he's wearing
sort
a
of
Confederate
commander,
uniform,
and he
pretty
looks,
much.
he literally
I saw that.
looks like he's modelled off General
I saw
Lee.
that. He looks
And
very
like
good.
we all know Hugh Laurie, he can do an American accent. You know, house.
Can he do a
Roadhouse.
southern accent?
I'm sure he could. He's a great actor. He looks
Although,
class.
like, I don't know if Lee really has that like drawly southern accent.
He got a lovely
Does he?
accent.
Virginia.
But I thought he was like very kind of like poshy. Like
Maybe not as much as like who's that crazy Confederate general with the two swords?
Too short. Is it Custer that's really like...
No, not Custer.
No, Custer-
You know who I mean, the mad guy. And I always forget his name. He's so funny. Not his cavalry guy who at Gettysburg, he's like, where is General? What do you call that?
Stuart?
Where is General Stuart? I must speak with him. No, it's that other cunt who would ride into battle with like two swords brandished.
That's very Nazi.
It's mad, man.
I like the story about Stonewall Jackson riding around with his arm up in the air after getting injured because he thought his humors were out of sync or
Yeah,
something.
in Gods and Generals, what's the reason? It's because he gets shot or something in the hand? He's wounded in the hand, so he
He's
has to
out of
hold it
balance.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
balance.
I don't know what actually
And he-
happens, but it's
yeah.
something to do with his humors.
It's something like he takes a load of pepper. Loads of pepper and sucks some lemons constantly. It was so incredibly religious. Tried not to fight on Sundays, but they fought so many. But they fought so many of their battles on Sundays that they,
Your man
they
who-
began to think that the Lord was on his side.
Your man,
there's always a rationalization for
your
everything.
man who plays him in Gods and Generals is class, and he also plays a different general in Gettysburg. Again, I can't remember anyone's name today. Yeah, so the actor who plays Stonewall Jackson in Gods and Generals, he's also a different Confederate general in Gettysburg.
Robert Duvall is in Gods and Generals.
he's Lee. He's
What the
Lee.
hell?
Yeah, he's Lee.
And Jeff Daniels is in it as well.
Yeah, Jeff Daniels is he
Stephen
was
Lang.
Chamberlain in Gettysburg.
Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang, yes.
Yeah. He's Stonewall Jackson.
Yes,
in
he was
Gods and
in
Generals.
Avatar. You know, the antagonist general.
Colonel Miles
Yeah. He is
Quattridge.
good.
Colonel Miles Quattridge.
Is there any reviews for what's it
the
going to
film
be
called?
called? Something about Judy.
Yeah, because Lee was all about Judy. Like it was Judy before all else. Top of my head,
Virginia
like.
Judy.
I think Lee is just a good title.
Just Lee. Yeah, do a Lincoln. Lee. Yeah, simple. It's easy. And I'm not gonna lie. Of all the films we've talked about, I would be first in line to see that film.
I would definitely say
It would probably be the best watch.
Like, yeah, the most
out of all
enjoyable.
three. Yeah,
Because it's
yeah.
going to be this sprawling, epic, huge
Period
budget,
drama.
enormous
Yeah,
budget
yeah.
with this big cast and crew. Like, obviously, a highly sanitized biopic that's intent on restoring the public image of General Lee for some reason.
So the character here, this is something interesting. The character that Ted Turner played in Gods and Generals, yeah,
Right.
was
I
Rolf.
didn't know it was actually a signed character.
Yeah, Waller T. Patton, who was great uncle to George Patton.
Oh, shit!
Interesting.
Yeah,
No way!
that's quite cool.
Here, Herman Goring's father was involved in the Namibian genocide. He was like their, like not viceroy, but you know what I mean. He was in charge of Namibia. He was in charge of Namibia around the time when
call that
the
reaction.
genocide started.
The apple doesn't fall far from the
Yeah,
tree.
yeah. Fucking
Anyway,
right.
well, that'll do us for episode 10. It's been a monumental episode. I'm glad we made it this far, and we'll make it again to 20, 100%.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate the support, and we'll see you again.
Thanks, guys.
Ta-ra!
Well, I wish I was in the land of cotton wool, and there I not forgot to look away, Dixieland. In Dixie's land where I